So many meetings can feel like a waste of time, but before you blame a sloppy agenda or lax leadership, there could be an even simpler reason. Your presence isn't necessary. Here to explain the optimal numbers game when it comes to meetings is WSJ Work Family columnist Sue Shellenbarger. Hi, Sue. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Tanya.
So, Sue, how often does it happen that managers simply call too many people to meetings?
Very commonly, they don't want to offend anyone. They want to get diverse points of view. Michael Mankins of Bain & Company estimates that more than 40% of the hours frontline supervisors spend in meetings could probably not be necessary, might be better spent somewhere else.
And what tends to happen when a meeting swells in number?
It's interesting. The social pressures that happen make people less productive. There's something called social loafing, which is people rely on others to come up with ideas. They don't feel as accountable in large numbers. And also, they're more likely to blame other people for if something goes wrong rather than take responsibility and step up.
So interesting. So, Sue, what are the optimal numbers of people for a meeting, or does it vary depending on the meeting's agenda?
It does vary depending on what you're trying to get done.
I see. All right. So let's start with a decision-making meeting then.
Usually 4 to 6 people in such a meeting. You need people with a stake in the decision, those who have necessary information or who can take information back to their teams, and those who can really participate in deciding what to do.
That's a relatively small number.
It is, and it still works better.
I believe it. Now, what about a meeting called to discuss problems? What is the balance that a manager needs to strike here?
Around the same size there, 4 to 6 or 7, and the goal is to have no spectators. Each person should have an active role to play. Someone might bring necessary information, or the role may be to take back information to their team and disseminate it. Some people may have the wisdom born of long experience, and other people may simply need to help with the actual discussion and have a stake in it.
Okay, so now is this the same dynamic as in the daily agenda setting meeting that usually happens typically at the beginning of the day?
That's a different kind of thing. We see it called the daily huddle or the stand-up meeting. Those are usually very brief, 10 to 20 minutes, and the size varies based on the size of the team or the people whose cooperation and work is needed to get the agenda accomplished that day. It might be 5 to 15 people, roughly.
Right. Okay, now what about a brainstorming session? This sort of meeting can afford to be a little larger, is that right?
It can. We have some romantic ideals about this, though. 10 to 20 is a common size for a brainstorming meeting, but research shows that people actually don't come up with their best ideas on the spot when stimulated by a whole bunch of other people coming up with ideas. They actually come up with better ideas on their own when given time to think about them. Andrew Carton at Wharton School recommends giving people a chance before the meeting to come up with their ideas and bring them in writing, or have a technique during the meeting that people can think by themselves and then contribute in writing, maybe on a Post-it note.
It's so interesting because that means that bigger is not necessarily better than when it comes to brainstorming. We think that the more people involved, that the more creative people will get, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
You certainly want diverse perspectives, and you want to ask a wide range of people. What's different is the process of coming up with ideas is a little bit more individual than we think.
Right. All right. Sue Shellenbarger, thank you so much for that fascinating insight. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.